All right, we are live. Greetings, everyone. I don't know if there are any of you present right now. This is my first time doing a live YouTube event. So, apologies in advance if this isn't the most professional of setups. But I'm learning as I go along. I'll keep it very simple. I don't want this to freeze up or crash on me. So I can't see if there's anyone right now in the room with me. If there's anybody here, can you type something in the comments section? Type a comment. I'll type something for you. So if you're in the room, just type something in the comments section so I can know that I'm not the only one here. Anyways, even if there are only a few of you that wind up showing up here or finding this feed, it doesn't matter. It'll be preserved for posterity on my YouTube channel. So you'll be able to catch it at a later time if you're not watching this live. So thank you for joining me. Tonight it's a celebration of my new novel, a thriller titled Oblique. It's a book that I finished writing back in 2015. The last draft was in 2015. And it's coming out now 3 years later. This is the longest time I've ever had a book between the time a book was finished writing and to actually see publication. I shopped it around a little bit, and I decided in the end to publish it myself the way I'd done with my short story collections. And it's coming out only in as a sign of the times. It's coming out only in digital format, so in PDF, mobile, which is the Kindle format, and EPUB for those of you who have Nook, Kobo, and Sony readers. So you'll be able to purchase it at the end of the book launch. I will take emails or actually messages on my Facebook page. So you can message me. It'll be $3 US and $4 Canadian. The regular price is $5 Canadian and $4 US. So you'll get $1 off for, let's say, the hour following the broadcast. So from, I guess, 9 to 10, we'll do that. I tend to ramble sometimes, so I'm gonna try to keep it within the time frame of 8 to 9 for the feed. What's on the menu tonight? First of all, if you go to the events page on Facebook, the event page for the launch, you'll see that I posted about, I guess, an hour ago, a short story called Scapegoat. That short story is a brand new short story. I've been recycling and posting a lot of content the past 7 weeks of the short stories that I've written as Alan Draven. This is the first short story that I've penned as Neal Vandar, which is an anagram of Alan Draven. For those of you wondering what's the difference between Alan Draven and Neal Vandar? Neal Vandar is basically the alter ego of Alan Draven. For anything that doesn't take place in Bitternest, anything that's not that can be fit in the horror / dark suspense / supernatural stories that I usually write, so that people who are used to the kind of books that I publish as Alan Draven wouldn't come to this expecting to find a tale in Bitternest or some dark story or a supernatural story. This book, Oblique, is just a straight up thriller. It's a bit of a mind fuck. Halfway through, there's something that happens that should make you go, "What the fuck?" So it's a different type of book. It's not set in any of my Bitternest universe that I have, like the mythology that I've been creating for all those years with Bitternest. It has none of the recurring characters that you're used to seeing in Bitternest. So it's brand new. It's a standalone story. It's only, if this were a print book, it'd be 286 pages long. So it's my shortest novel. I think most of my novels are between 330 and 360 pages. So it's short, it's tight, it's a fast-paced book. It's written in first person, something that I rarely do. I'm not a big fan of first person, but it was the only way to tell this story. It's a kind of story, the less you know going into it, the better it is. That's why tonight I'll be doing a reading of chapters 5 and 6. I can't really go past that because to set it up to get into the context of it, I'd have to spoil it for you. So I'll go with chapter 5 and 6. If you haven't already read the free preview chapters 1, 2, and 3, you can do so. Look on the event page or on my blog or pretty much anywhere. If you follow me, you'll see there's a link somewhere for the first 3 chapters. I'm skipping chapter 4. I'm going directly to chapter 5 and 6 for tonight because it makes for more interesting, more engaging reading with banter between characters. Yes, apart from that, so Scapegoat, the short story, is a short story that has some baseball in it. Even if you're not into baseball, I'm pretty sure you'll get a kick out of this one. It's got some time travel, a whole lot of nostalgia. It's 26 pages long. I set out to write a 5,000 word story, and it ended up being 8,800 words. But I'm really proud of this one. It's one of those stories that I managed to get exactly what I had in mind on paper. That doesn't always happen, so always very thankful when that happens. So I'm hoping you'll enjoy it. It's released exclusively tonight on the event page. Tomorrow it'll be on my blog, on my Twitter page, and my regular Facebook fan page. So that will be the first thing. If ever you have any questions, comments, or complaints during this broadcast, just comment on the stream here on YouTube. Don't comment on my Facebook page because or the event page. I won't be going there during the broadcast. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this simple. My laptop has a bad habit of freezing up on me, so I just want to focus on the YouTube page. Also, when I'll do the reading, so that you don't spend the whole time I read looking at me just reading some pages. I have something in mind that's a little that should be fun. Fun is might be an exaggeration, but it'll be more engaging than just staring at me reading through pages for half an hour. When I say reading, I can already hear some of you groaning, like, "Oh, great, another author doing a reading." I can totally understand your apprehensions. I know a lot of writers that read their books and it sounds like I'd rather watch paint dry on a wall than listen to that. But I guarantee you will have a good time listening to the way I read. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty damn good at it. I usually do it kind of like a performance, almost like performance theater. I change my voice for the different characters, take accents. There's none of that for that story. There's no different. You don't have any different accents and things like that. But I know how to tell an engaging story when I do a reading. So yeah, I'm betting that by the end of chapter 5 you'll be hooked, and at the end of chapter 6 you'll be like, well, I just got to know what happens next. I have to buy the book. So hopefully that'll be the case. I timed myself yesterday when I did the practice reading, and my voice is a little messed up tonight because of that. I overdid it last night. I was a little too ambitious with some of the voices, but I'll try to tone it down tonight and try to remain very dynamic at the same time. So yeah, it should take about 30-35 minutes to go through. It's 21 pages of text. But I go through it rather quickly, and it's a very like it's fast paced, so you won't get bored. There's not like tons of exposition and stuff like that. It's mostly dialogue, or you get to see with the character, the protagonist, who doesn't really have a name, or I won't reveal what his name is. So you will get to see what he thinks and what's happening to him. And all the way leading up to the beginning of the quest that will launch the rest of the story. So that's what I'll be doing. I was going to read a short story, but I'm going to run out of time. I was going to do a little reading of a 7-page short story that was already released a couple of weeks ago, part of my repackaging and re-releasing of short stories, one a week. So I'm going to do that probably before Halloween. I will, as a little treat, I will do a live. At one point, I'll just pop up and I'll do a live reading of that story, because otherwise I'll run out of time tonight. What else? I have a bullet point list of things I want to talk about. I will also talk about what's coming in the coming weeks. If you've been following me on social media, you've seen that since the beginning of August, every week there's something. And it's been going on for like 7 weeks now. It will keep going until November 1st. Then I will vanish. When I do a big blitz like that for 3 full months, nonstop, I will vanish from social media for a good month before I start my next project in December. And I'll need a break at the end of this. So I'll tell you what's coming up in October. I'll have what I call $1 novellas. So the 4 novellas that I've written over the last 10 years will be re-released as standalone by themselves in mobile, Kindle, and EPUB and PDF. They will be on sale at $1 each on Kobo and on Amazon. So they'll have a brand new book cover, professional cover, not like the title cards you've seen for the short stories that I've been re-releasing. And yeah, so I'll have one a week by that for you. I already talked about the book. If you want to purchase a copy at the end of the feed, you'll be able to do so by contacting me via Facebook. You can pay by PayPal if you're in Canada. Since I'm Canadian, you can pay me via Interactive Transfer, and I'll just send you the file as an attachment in your Facebook account. Yeah, so that's it. If you're joining us right now, and if you're wondering if you're at the right place, you're at the Oblique Virtual Book Launch. I'll talk a little bit about why I decided to do a virtual book launch. Since there's no physical copy of this book, to me it was a little bit anticlimactic to have a new book out. And it's like, all right, well, it's live on Amazon, it's live on Kobo. Yay! I have a new book out, but I don't get anything in my hands. I don't get to flip through the pages and say, oh, these are my words. I have a new book, and I don't get to do a physical book launch where I have people over. And what I've done, I think 3 or 4 in the past. And it's always a lot of fun. You sell copies of the book and you sign them and you talk with people. We have some beer, some chips. Since I wasn't going to be able to do that, I'm like, well, I got to do something to celebrate. I got to do something to have a little bit of a party. So this is, I think, the next best thing. You can be in your pajamas, sit in your favorite comfy chair, and pour yourself a hot cup of coffee, grab a beer, and just enjoy the reading that I'll do for you. And yeah, it'll work very much like a real book launch would work, except you don't have to go anywhere. You're already home, and when it's over, you can start reading the book right away. You don't have to do a commute or hop in your car at the end of the night to head back home. So yeah, it's more of a, actually I'm doing this, it's more of a selfish thing. I'm doing this for myself and hoping you guys will enjoy will be along for the ride and you'll enjoy this. So yes, that's the reason why I did that. If I talk a little bit about the inception of Oblique, this is a story that I've had in mind since all the way back in 2006 when I was writing my very first novel, BITTERNEST, in the spring of 2006. I went at the time with my then wife. We went for dinner one night in this brand new restaurant, and I went to the bathroom at one point, and it was this weird thing that you went down some stairs, like really deep, like a good 20 stairs, and you went down, and by the time you got down to the washroom, you couldn't hear anything of what happened above in the restaurant. So I was thinking anything could happen up there and I wouldn't even know. And my mind started wandering, as any author will tell you, we start thinking about these things. And I was just like, well, if everybody got killed up there, I wouldn't even hear it. So I went to the bathroom, came back about 6, 7 minutes later. And again, when I opened the door to emerge from the stairway, I was like, everything is fine. But then I told my wife at the time, I told her about this little idea that I had. And she's like, this is really a really cool idea. It could be a nice idea for a starting point for a novel. So when I got back home, I wrote it down. I had a few more ideas. And I put it in what I call my little black book of ideas, where I put all the different ideas. And at the time, I don't know why, but I figured this would be a book with aliens. And no, there are no aliens. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there are no aliens in this book. So at the time, it was like, maybe this would deal with aliens. So that didn't happen. Fast forward back to 2013. I was looking for a next project. I was struggling writing a first book of my Atlantis series, which finally will never be released. But I wrote the first book of that. It took 2 years of my life, and it completely drained me creatively. But I wrote that book, and at one point, I'm like, I need to go back to something fun, something that I'll really enjoy writing, that isn't so much of a challenge as the Atlantis book, my Atlantia book was. So I went back to my little back book of ideas, and I looked at the ideas that I had in the past that I never explored. And there it was, Oblique. I'm like, wow, this is the perfect thing for me to write right now. So started writing it, and here it is. Now you'll be able to see what the finished product is. So that's where oblique came. Oblique is a word that means, it's a little off. You're not too sure. It's oblique. It's like the book cover. If you see there's balconies and it's an oblique line. Actually, the scene where the book cover comes from, the idea for the book cover comes from chapter 5. So tonight you'll get to see where I got the idea for the cover. I saw that image, that photo. I'm like, well, this will make a perfect picture, a perfect book cover. So that's where Oblique comes from. The idea to write this novel comes from. So again, once again, if there are any of you joining us right now in progress, welcome. Thanks for joining us, joining me. I'm all alone here. I don't know if there's anyone in the room. Type something if you're here. I see the chat. It's empty, so I don't know if anybody can find this link easily. I tried to set up one of those links that as a reminder and all that, and it wouldn't work. I had a hard time with it, so I decided to just go live and hopefully you people will find it on my YouTube channel. I'm not really sure how that works. So yeah. All right. So if I move on to, I'll move on to the reading. I will do this. What I'll do the reading, and after that, if there are more of you that have joined us, maybe I could take questions or read your comments. Oh, Sarah, you're here. So I have someone who just joined us. So okay, hopefully more of you join us. At least that tells me that you're able to find me. That's a good sign. So yeah, without further ado, I'll get started. And yeah, so what I had in mind, so that you guys don't spend half an hour staring at me while I go through good old school, old-fashioned paper sheets while I read this story, I have set up something for you to look at, something that would be, like I said, more interesting than looking at me. So for you Star Wars fans out there are going to get a kick out of this. You will be looking at Princess Leia, circa 1977, in her prime. So that will be if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going like, oh, this is cool. If you're not, well, tough luck. That's my little setup for the next half hour. Give me a second. And I'm back. So here we go. Oh, before I start, actually, I forgot something. Bad host, really bad host. Okay, let me set up the scene, the chapter, whatever for you. This is, if you've read chapter 1, 2, 3, you pretty much know what's happening. Okay, so in a nutshell, the book starts out, we see the protagonist when he's 14 years old, is on his way to school one day, goes through a forest, and there's this girl, this teenage girl, who's in the process of being raped / killed. So he just takes a big rock, smashes the would-be rapist's head, inadvertently kills the would-be rapist. So the girl and him just throw him in the river, and his body was never found. And 25 years later, he never kept in touch with that girl. She moved away from the town. 25 years later, out of nowhere, one day he gets a message on social media from this girl, this woman, who's a woman, and she wants to catch up with him, or it's not too clear what she wants to meet him. She asks him to go to dinner. So he's like, oh, all right, well, yeah, let's do that. He's wondering a little bit why she wants to see him after all these years, and he had sort of repressed the whole incident. He never told anyone. I mean, you committed murder when you're 14, so it's like he never told anyone about the incident. And so yeah, he goes to the dinner. While he's she gets there before they would start ordering. He goes to the bathroom, and the scene that I went through. He comes back up. Everybody's dead. No traces of violence. No blood. No bullets. The staff is dead. All the patrons are dead. The girl is dead. So he panics. What does he do? Does he call the cops? He freezes up and he's like, I gotta get the hell out of here. So he just takes off and goes home. The next day, again, he's wondering what to do. He looks online, he looks at the news, try to find out if there's anything that people are talking about this. I mean, it's not every day that everybody in a restaurant gets whacked off. So he's just like, okay, well, there's no mention of it anywhere. This is really weird. So he calls the restaurant. Somebody picks up as if, business as usual. So now he's wondering, what the hell is this? Was this a prank? Was she involved? Or so anyway, so that's chapter 1, 2, 3. He calls his best friend. He's like, okay, I need to see you. I need to talk about something. So he goes to his best friend's place, tells him about that. His best friend is like, yeah, I told you this girl is weird. Shows up out of nowhere after 25 years. So he just decides to, it's like, okay, well, I need to figure out what's happening. You need to help me. But while he's there at his friend's place, he starts becoming increasingly paranoid, and he hears sirens. He sees the cops pulling over at his friend's building. So now he panics. He thinks his friend has double crossed him, called the cops on him. So he bolts out of there, and he's like, there's no way I'm going back home. They're probably waiting for me there. So he just gets out of there. And this is basically the beginning of chapter 5. He decides to go to this little pub to get a drink and gather his thoughts, and it's like, what am I going to do next? So this is this is where we are. This is the setup for this chapter. So it's chapter 5 of Oblique. Okay, put Carrie back. Your princess, your highness, is there. She'll keep you company while I do the reading. All right. After grabbing a bite to eat at a nearby pizza parlor and collecting my thoughts, I risked showing my face outside again. I'm not someone who has many friends or relatives. In terms of people I can trust completely, it boils down to my mom and my sister. I couldn't get my mom involved in this because she was still in a fragile state since my dad's passing to cancer last year. That left my younger sister. I often thought of confiding in her back in my teenage years to alleviate my conscience of the weight of the murder I committed, but I never did. She's 5 years younger than me, and so I didn't think it appropriate at the time when I was 15 and she was only 10 to burden her with that knowledge. I never got around to telling her after we were both all grown up. I moved out of the family nest, and now we live at opposite ends of the country. She's married and has a young daughter. She's done pretty well for herself. I was debating whether I should give her a call, but first I had to get off the streets. The obvious option was going to a local bar I often passed by on my way to the gym, as I was just around the corner. I wasn't ready for a heavy drink yet, but could slowly work my way to it. Heaven knows I could use it right about now. I walked into the lonely shamrock, a cautious glance over my shoulder before I descended down the dark stairwell. I was swallowed up by a cloud of smoke generated by 3 smokers taking a drag off their cigarettes as if they were precious lifelines. I made a beeline for the bar and sat on a stool in the corner. "What'll it be?" the bald-bearded barman asked. "A ginger ale, please." "Coming up." I gazed around the room. It was still early and the place was slowly starting to fill up. A table behind me where 3 loud drunken patrons were sitting caught my eye. They had eyeballed me when I first walked in, and now one of them gave me a nasty look as my eyes swept their table. "1 ginger ale for the gentleman. That'll be $3, the barkeep said. "Thanks." I paid and gave him a $1 tip. Obnoxious laughter erupted from the table at my back. I didn't turn around and tried to ignore them. "Look at that pussy at the bar. He drinks ginger ale. What's the matter? Can't hold your liquor?" one of them said. Of all the nights for this to happen. "Hey, pussy, cat got your tongue?" More laughter. He probably thought he was clever with his choice of words. Once again, I ignored them and sipped my ginger ale. Then something flicked against the back of my head. A dill pickle. "Hey, sissy, my buddy asked you a question. What gives? You too good to answer?" My heart rate picked up. I should have just got the hell out of there before things really escalated to an unimaginable level. I heard a chair slide across the floor, then a second one. 2 of them were getting up. At that point, I turned to face them. "Come on, guys. I'm just here to relax and have a drink." "Yeah, you're in a bar, pussy. Here we drink real drinks, not soft drinks." "I love nothing more right now, but I'm still hungover from last night," I said, raising my ginger ale. "Hence the soft drink." "Then why the hell did you come to a bar, sissy?" These guys were just wonderful human beings, I could tell. One called me pussy, the other a sissy. The third one, who had the most impressive physique of the bunch, sat in silence, lazily drinking from his bottle of beer. "Look, I don't want any trouble, all right?" Both men chortled. "You hear that, Jimmy? The pussy doesn't want any trouble," he said with slurred speech. "Doesn't look like it's up to him, does it?" his pal replied. I didn't know whether I should just turn my back to them to face the bar and hope they would go sit down, or stand up and calmly walk away toward the exit. Wishing they would go away was like running in a field covered with landmines and hoping not to step on one. So I took a deep breath and was about to stand up when the barman intervened. "You boys better calm down or I'll stick it outside. There'll be no fighting in my establishment, or I'll have the cops here faster than you can say what. Do I make myself clear?" I didn't know what was worse at the moment, dealing with those troublemakers or risking facing the cops. How did this turn out to be such a lousy day? The 2 goons looked at one another for a brief instant, debating what to do. Then their silent partner slammed his empty beer bottle on the table and let out a loud belch. and rose from his seat. Come on, guys. Let's get some fresh air and teach this wimp a thing or two about being a man. I think I liked him better when he was quiet. After you, pussy. I was gonna have to think fast to get out of this one. I'm of average height and average build, and I may not be the most courageous guy out there, but I'm no sissy pussy wimp either. I know how to defend myself. I once kicked the living crap out of a kid twice my size in high school, but that's another story for another time. I climbed down from my stool and looked at the one called Jimmy in the eye before walking away from them. You know, this is all really stupid. You fellas are like a bunch of angry high schoolers playing the bullies in a schoolyard. Well, if that's the way you want to play it, for the record, I really didn't know where I was going with this. I was making it up as I was going along. I just didn't want them to think I was scared of them. That's the first rule in a fight. Never show your opponent that you're afraid. It'll give them an edge over you. Second rule in a fight is that the element of surprise can go a long way. I was scratching my head real hard trying to find a way to pull a rabbit out of my ass as I walked almost leisurely, or doing my best impression of a laid back walk toward the exit. I could see the reflection in the mirror in front of me, and I saw that they were following me, maintaining a distance of a good 4 feet between us. As I climbed the stairwell leading to the sidewalk, I knew it was now or never. I glanced over my shoulder to make sure the first of them had begun ascending the stairs, and I performed a strong back kick that landed smack in the middle of his chest. It resulted in him tumbling down the stairs, knocking his two buddies like dominoes. They fell on top of each other, and it gave me a chance to flee. I ran out of the lonely shamrock like a dog in heat chasing a bitch, and took a left to head down to the labyrinthine alleyways and back streets, hoping I'd lose them if they came after me, which, of course, they did. It was the one named Jimmy who led the pack, with the one built like a brick shithouse coming in third place. And man, they looked pissed. I wasn't going to look back from this point on. I needed every inch of the head start I had if I was going to get the upper hand and make it out of this one in one piece. I knew the area well, and once in the main alleyway, I cut across a vacant yard to my right and into another set of alleyways. I could hear them cussing at me, threatening to do abominable things if they caught me. I zigzagged in the network of alleys, running on pure adrenaline. I was both surprised and grateful that I wasn't out of breath given the state I was in. Running for your life will cure the worst of hangovers, it seems. I must have kept this up for almost 10 minutes because it got to a point where I didn't recognize my surroundings. That's when I noticed the stabbing pain in the left side of my abdomen. I allowed myself to stop, to take a breather, and looked over my shoulder to see if the three scoundrels were still at my heels. I caught a glimpse of them through the bushes in a perpendicular alley. It looked as though the big guy had fallen behind because he was nowhere in sight. A welcome relief. He's over there! Quick! Get the son of a bitch! There was really no need to involve my mother. I took a deep breath and made a beeline for the fence less than 10 feet in front of me. I climbed over it and landed facing a brick wall. I looked to my left and my right. A dead end both ways. I turned to see how far behind the goons were. I estimated they'd make it to the fence in 5 seconds. Not good. Not good at all. I had painted myself into a corner, the worst possible mistake I could have made. I'd almost felt cocky, luring them into this maze of sorts. Now I'd gone too far and was in unknown territory. The only option available to me was the fire escape of the building directly across from me. It would lead me to the roof. Then what? I'd cross that bridge when I get there. I slid down the bottom ladder and of the open steel gratings along its track and began climbing the rungs to the first horizontal platform. This particular fire escape had 6 levels. By the time I made it to the second platform, the 2 bullies had just landed over the fence and were making their way to the fire escape. I kept climbing, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and finally reached the final platform. In a desperate move, I scaled the railing and leapt onto the edge of the building. An ugly sculpted ornament provided me with something to hold on to. My next stop was the roof. All the stories you read about people accomplishing amazing feats in desperate situations on sheer adrenaline weren't exaggerated. I swear I would never have had the guts or the stamina to do any of this under normal circumstances. I stood on tiptoes, stretched my arms, pulled myself up on the edge of the roof as my feet pedaled against the brick wall while I propelled myself onto the rooftop. I stood up on my feet and gazed down below. It was a good thing I didn't have vertigo, as it seemed much higher looking down than it was looking up. The 2 goons were gaining on me. The big question remained whether they'd have the acrobatic skills to climb onto the roof to come after me. Another big question was, what the hell was I going to do now? The closest rooftop was at least 8 feet away. Had I painted myself into a worse corner than before? I walked over to the opposite edge and got a good look at what awaited me on the other side. I had no idea if I could execute a jump like this. Didn't have a clue if anyone could claim to either. Hey, pussy! Did you forget about us? Ah, I wish I could. I turned on my heels to face him. Jimmy's head was coming up over the edge, and he'd be standing next to his pal in a second or two. Look, guys, don't you think you've taken this far enough? You've made your point. It was Jimmy who spoke now. Says the guy who climbed on the rooftop. They both laughed. They sounded pissed drunk and pissed off. I was cornered. I didn't know what to do. Cut me some slack, will you? I didn't do anything to you guys. You made us fall down the stairs. Dwayne's back there puking his guts out because you made him run after he drank a barrel of beer. Yeah, and I fucking hate running, Jimmy said. Yeah, me too. So I'd say you deserve everything we'll do to you. As he said it, he produced a pair of brass knuckles from his coat pocket and slid them around his fingers. If I had been skeptical about how serious these guys were to do me in, all doubts had left my mind now. They took 2 steps forward. They were so synchronized they looked like robots. Under different circumstances, it would have made me smile. Maybe. So, what are you going to do to me, huh? Beat me to a pulp, push me off the roof? There's an idea, Jimmy said. That adrenaline I talked about earlier, it shot through my veins and made me feel like Superman. I took one look at the adjacent rooftop and bit my lower lip. Fuck it. I backed up a good 5 feet, the most I could do without running into the goons, and I hit the ground running. I leaped off the rooftop, and everything appeared to switch to slow motion around me. Me in the air, the sounds of the city, and the yells of the 2 goons. That's when it occurred to me that I was going to die. I shut my eyes and waited for the impact to come. It never did. Or at least the only impact was that of my feet, barely landing on the targeted rooftop. I rolled on the roof and opened my eyes. I was on my back, staring at the fading daylight. I clenched my fists, moved my limbs to see if anything was broken. I had somehow miraculously survived the jump. I tilted my head and glimpsed at my 2 pursuers on the other rooftop. If they were irritated before, man, they were absolutely livid now. Jimmy backed up. Crazy son of a gun was going to try to jump on my rooftop. I sprang to my feet and evaluated my options. No other rooftops in sight. Not that I was going to be crazy enough to try to pull off a stunt like this again. Luck can only get you so far. The only other alternative available to me was to go down this building's fire escape. I double-checked to make sure it didn't lead to a dead end both ways this time. The front of the alley led to another alley, while the rear was closed off by a chain-link fence approximately 6 to 8 feet high, which led to a parking lot. That was my way out. As I started for the edge of the building, Jimmy leaped over the gap between the 2 buildings. I watched him with terror, and that terror turned into anguish mixed with relief as he landed a few inches shy of my building, his fingertips gripping the edifice's rim for dear life while his legs swung in the air. I froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. Pull me up, you asshole! A pussy, a sissy, a wimp, a son of a bitch, and now an asshole, and he had the nerve to ask me to pull him up to safety? Why should I said as I walked toward him. Because if you don't and I fall, you won't make it through the night alive. And if I do give you a hand, then we'll let you go, this time. I might be naive from time to time, but I'm not a sap and I didn't believe him. I'm also not a killer, in spite of that incident all those years ago. So I had to lend him a hand. I couldn't watch him fall to his death without feeling responsible. I swear, if you break your word, I'm going to push you right off this rooftop. I had to take charge and show him I wasn't a pussy. All right, just help me up already, will ya? I glanced over at his buddy who was observing the scene speechless from the other rooftop. He didn't dare risk attempting to jump or try to upset me in any way for fear that I'd leave his buddy to rot. As I crouched down to extend Jimmy my arm, one of his hands slipped and let go of the rooftop's rim. No! He yelled. I grabbed his other arm as fast as I could and tried pulling him up. If I fall and die, you can kiss your future goodbye. I stopped pulling him up. How dare you threaten me as I'm trying to help you? Fuck you, he said. Then he let go of the edge. I hadn't secured my grip on his arm as he thought I had. For the second time tonight, I saw the scene unfold before my eyes in slow motion as he free fell, and I grabbed at nothing frantically with my hands like a character in a cartoon. Then normal speed resumed and a loud thud resounded in the alley as his body crashed against the dumpster. He rested on his back, unmoving, his eyes open wide and staring blankly at me. Jimmy! His buddy screamed like a banshee. Then he looked at me and pointed a forefinger with more hatred than I'd ever seen directed at me. You're fucking dead, you son of a bitch! I lost count of how many times I had panicked tonight. I went into full panic mode and thought my heart would stop or leap out of my chest, whichever came first. All I knew was that I had to get as far away from here as fast as I could. I jumped down to the top platform of the fire escape and ran down the stairs. Hey, get back here! The goon yelled. He'd have to double back and go down the fire escape on the other side of the building he was on if he wanted to catch me. I'd be long gone by the time he made his way here. When I landed on the ground, I couldn't help but gawk at Jimmy's lifeless body. There was no doubt about it. He was dead. His head had split open, probably as it hit the dumpster. The blood was dripping off the dumpster on the ground of the alleyway. Something snapped within me, and I heard this voice scream at me from the inside. Run! And that's exactly what I did. I climbed over the fence and then I ran like the wind through the industrial parking lot without ever glancing back. I ran until my lungs burned, until I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I found myself in the industrial area amidst warehouses and factories. In the distance behind me, I could hear sirens, the paramedics and the cops. The paramedics were for Jimmy, and the cops for me. I cut through parking lots and vacant lots until I made it back to civilization on the other side of the train tracks. It was dusk by then, and I had nowhere left to go. It seemed like a good time to call my sister. I dialed her number on my cell. It rang 4 times, and the answering machine picked up. Hey, sis, can you give me a call as soon as you get this message? I'm afraid I'm in a bit of trouble right now. Talk to you soon. It's at times like these that I really wish I had a car. I always figure that living in the city, everything's at walking distance, and I've got no use for a car. If I had a car, I'd have a place to crash for the night, for one thing. I looked around me, and a vacancy sign in blue neon stared me straight in the face. A black billboard with the faded words, Pete's Motel in red painted on it hung over the rental office. It looked cheap, run down, and deserted. Just what I needed for the night. I crossed the street and went to get a room. Chapter 6. I hope everybody's still with me. Morning greeted me like a punch in the face. I shook my head and it hurt as if I were still hungover. It felt as though it were filled with cotton balls. I rolled out of bed and my legs were wobbly. What was happening to me? This felt more like I'd been drugged than drunk. But I hadn't taken any drugs or ingested any alcohol for over 24 hours. I looked at the room and something was odd. I didn't think much of it as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and made my way to the bathroom to relieve myself. It's when I came out that it struck me. The TV was gone. The walls were now bare, where I vividly remembered 3 or 4 abstract paintings hanging on them. And the most glaring change from last night was that the walls were all white, while they had been a brownish wooden color when I'd gone to sleep. And weren't there curtains instead of blinds in the windows? I was in a different room. What was all this about? Then I noticed that I was still wearing my clothes. I tried hard to remember what I'd done after coming into the room, but it was all a blur. I remembered turning on the TV and lying on the bed. I must have passed out, I guess. But how does someone pass out and wake up in a different room? Was someone playing a prank on me? Was all this a prank? No. Jimmy was really dead. No one could have faked that. I got a good look at him. That image of him splattered on the dumpster will haunt me forever. I lost count of how many times I'd wondered what the heck was happening in the last 48 hours. I went to look for my cell. I turned the room inside out and it was nowhere to be found. I didn't wear a watch, so without my phone, I didn't know what time it was. The room was devoid of any clocks. I opened the closet to see if I'd hooked my coat there, since I couldn't for the life of me recall if I was wearing it or not last night. The only clothes in the closet were an orange plaid suit, a red and white lumberjack-type flannel shirt, and a flashy green hoodie. They were just so mismatched, but I got curious and decided to try them on. I looked at myself in the mirror once I was fully dressed. I laughed and said out loud, I'd better get out of these clothes real fast or I'll have to kick my own ass. Yuck. In terms of size, though, they fit me like a glove. Weird. One more question mark to add to the long list. I got out of the fashion victim's clothes and wore my old clothes from yesterday. My shirt smelled like sweat from all the running I'd done, and my boxers didn't feel fresh. At least I still had my wallet, but my phone appeared to be gone. Damn, my life was in there. I took one last look around and decided I'd check out and inquire with the men in the office what happened here. I was going to give him a piece of my mind if his answers didn't satisfy me. I walk up to the door, and for a second I feared how it might have been locked up in this room. I turned the doorknob slowly, and the door opened. It wasn't even locked. I raised my eyes to look outside before taking a step forward, and my jaw dropped. I wasn't at Pete's Motel anymore. Gone were the industrial neighborhood and the busy boulevard. I was now in a quiet, remote place in nature, which at first glance wasn't even a motel. From what I gathered, this was kind of a series of lodges. I counted 7 of them, including the one I was in. No trace of anything indicating the name of the area or even an inkling of what this place was. For that matter, what city was this? I sure as hell wasn't in Kansas anymore, to quote Dorothy. There weren't any cars in the parking lot, nor were there any signs of life from any of the other cabins. I couldn't see very far since I was surrounded by a thick layer of trees, but there appeared to be a cornfield or something akin to that beyond the clearing straight ahead. I started toward the field to get a better vantage point. I couldn't get over how quiet it was. No sounds of nearby traffic, no birds singing or even squirrels chittering. At the clearing, I got a full view of the field. I was right. It was a cornfield. Apart from a handful of scarecrows spread out in the field, it went on as far as the eye could see in all directions. I could see a small house in the distance. I guess that's where I'd be heading next in my quest for answers. In spite of the circumstances, the long walk through the field was surprisingly pleasant, and it gave me time to shake off the drugged feeling. I made it to the house's doorstep feeling refreshed. The house was made of red brick, and a yellow porch went around it. It looked rather inviting. I was thankful for the shade in any case. I had no idea of the time, but the sun was already sizzling. One more reason to hope that there'd be somebody home. I knocked on the door. There was no doorbell. I heard footfalls on the other side of the screen door, but I couldn't see inside. Yeah? Good morning, sir. I'm sorry to bother you, but could you tell me where I am, please? The man stepped closer into the light, and I saw his face. An old man with a white beard who wore a straw hat, a dirty red t-shirt, and blue jean overalls. He didn't look happy to see me. You're on my farm, boy. I can see that. In my opinion, it didn't look like much of a farm, apart from the cornfield, that is. I was wondering if you could tell me the name of this city? Why, Springfield, of course. Springfield? Which one? What do you mean, which one? Well, there must be over 30 towns, cities, and townships by the name of Springfield across the United States. Are you on drugs, boy? What? Drugs! Do you take drugs? He said it real slow this time. No. Why would you say that? You're a strange one. Me? No, what's strange is that I wake up here in Springfield in one of those cabins over there, and I have no clue of how I got here. You must be on drugs. I was rapidly growing irritated. Look, I just have a few questions and I'll be out of your hair. I don't like answering questions, especially not on a Sunday of all days. Wait a minute. Sunday? It's Sunday today? But I went to bed on a Friday night. How did I lose a day? He sighed. Drugs! Enough already with the constant drugs illusion. I don't do drugs and I'm not crazy. I just need to know where I am and speak to the person who rents the cabins on the other side of your cornfield. Believe me, I want to get out of here as soon as possible. I don't think I like your tone, boy. Good day. And he slammed the door in my face. The only thing left I could think of was walking up the little path next to his house that hopefully led to a road. I started walking, the sun baking my flesh. I was dying for a glass of water. So much for rural hospitality. I finally made it to a narrow, unpaved gravel road of sorts. I looked in either direction and it wasn't much help. Nothing in sight for miles, so I decided to take a right and see where it would take me. Alone with my thoughts, I tried to analyze my situation. Who could have brought me here? Was it the other 2 goons that had tracked me down, drugged me, and drove me to this remote town? What if their involvement in the grand scheme of things played a major part in what was happening to me? What if they were in on whatever had gone on at La Jolie Bourgeoise? No, they couldn't be. They were at the bar before I even got there. Whoever was running the show couldn't possibly have known I'd go there when I didn't even know myself. Paranoia was swiftly getting the better of me and spinning its wild theories in the fragile state of mind I was in. So now I had to worry about the 2 goons on top of mass murderers. Terrific. Well, on the bright side, if they had wanted me dead, I'd be out of the picture already, so I guess they had a purpose for me. I wasn't going to stick around to find out what it was, though. I'd discover it eventually of my own volition. I didn't know whether I should should have felt more disturbed by the fact that I had apparently been kidnapped and taken to this no man's land of a town, or that I now potentially had two different groups of fiends after me. The first thing I needed to do was get to a phone to call my sister again. She was the only one I trusted now. I didn't know what I expected her to do, but I needed to confide in someone about all this craziness. After what must have been a good 30-minute walk, the light at the end of the tunnel came in the form of a post office. I had reached civilization at last. It appeared as if this were the main street of this Springfield town. A little farther down the street, I spied a general store, a grocery store, a fire station, and a handful more shops. I searched the street for a phone booth in vain. The post office was closed, and I wasn't surprised. If it were in fact Sunday, it was to be expected in a small town. I went to the next block and entered the general store. Two bells chimed above head as I walked in. The store was just as quiet on the inside as it was on the outside. There wasn't anyone behind the cash register. Hello? Is there anybody home? Seconds later, an elderly woman emerged from behind the curtains of what I figured was the back store.
Can I help you?
She said, sounding annoyed as if I'd taken her away from something important. I was wondering if you could give me some information.
Are you a tourist?
No, well, kind of. You see, I woke up this morning in one of the lodges beyond the cornfield.
You're talking about Jeremiah's field.
I guess. He wasn't very helpful.
Jeremiah hates trespassers, especially on Sundays.
Yeah, that much he made clear to me. Anyhow, so I woke up in one of the lodges, and I have no idea how I got here. She observed me suspiciously from head to toe. I swear if she said anything about me being on drugs, I was gonna snap.
You came by yourself?
That's just it. I never came here. I woke up in a strange room and I lost my cell phone and I need to call my sister. Jeremiah told me this town is called Springfield, but what state am I in? She told me. I was floored. How can that be? That's like 4 states south of where I was when I fell asleep on Friday. She frowned.
You're not making much sense, mister.
None of this is making much sense. I spotted a phone behind the counter and I pointed to it. Can I make a call, please?
Where are you gonna call?
I told her.
That's long distance.
I'll pay you. I reached for my wallet and handed her a $5 bill. Here, I'll be on the phone 5 minutes tops. I didn't see any phone booths outside, so this is really the first opportunity I've had to call my sister. She hesitated, glanced at the money, and then finally snatched it out of my hands.
5 minutes, not a second more.
Thank you. Man, the people in this town were anything but friendly. I'd sure hate to be stuck here any longer than I'd have to. She placed the phone on the counter and just stood there staring at me. Would it be too much to ask for a little privacy while I make my call? Again, hesitation, and finally she walked away to the back store.
I'll be back in 5 minutes,
she said over her shoulder. I was sure she would. I picked up the receiver, and before I keyed in my sister's number, I had to think for a moment. What am I going to tell her exactly? Where do I start? I'd play it by ear. I just wanted to hear a friendly voice. I dialed her number. It rang 4 times, and the answering machine began playing her and her husband's jovial message. Damn it. Hey, sis, it's your bro again. I don't know if you tried to call me back, but I lost my cell. I don't really have a number for you to reach me. I'm in a town called Springfield right now, and I have no clue how I got here. Long story. I'll try to give you a ring later today. I gotta find my way out of this place ASAP. Talk to you soon. Seconds after I hung up, the lady re-emerged from the back store. I was sure she'd listened to the whole call, however brief it had been. She walked up behind the counter and crossed her arms, staring at me without saying a word. She sure knew how to make someone feel unwelcome. Thanks for letting me use your phone. I bought a bottle of water and was on my way. I didn't want to bother asking her for directions or any kind of further help. I was starting to despise this little town of Springfield, and I figured I'd just walk in the same direction until I was outside city limits and into the neighboring town. Hopefully I'd come across kinder souls who would assist me in making sense of the strange predicament I found myself in. I walked on down the street and headed for the hill ahead. It wasn't that steep, but I found myself out of breath when I got atop it. The good news was that from my new vantage point, I could see the whole town from up here. A residential area filled with dozen streets lined up with small, nearly identical bungalows with only different roof colors to tell them apart. I could also spot a school, what looked like a library, a factory of some sort, a church, a minuscule strip mall, and a police station. Beyond that, all streets converged into a road flanked by rows of trees that disappeared in the distance. A rusty red bridge stood over a river between me and that suburban area. I started down the bridge to cross it with the clear intention that I'd simply pass through the area and follow the road to get to the next town. The first thing I encountered at the entrance of the bridge was a parked pickup truck. A man sat behind the wheel, gazing at something across the bridge with apparent interest. I stopped next to the truck and glanced in the expanse to see what it was that held his attention. There was nothing out of the ordinary. "They can all rot in hell for all I care," the man said, either to me or to himself. I couldn't tell. I leaned down to position myself at eye level with him, looked through the passenger window and said, "Are you talking to me?" "One last look at that god-forsaken town and I'm putting it in my rear view forever," he said without looking at me. I couldn't tell whether he was aware of my presence or if he was simply ignoring me. "I know the feeling, buddy. I've been here less than an hour and already I want to run away as far as I can from this place." He finally turned to face me. He was about my age, clean cut and freshly shaved. He wore a black suit, white shirt, and dark blue tie. I spied an Omega watch around his left wrist and a BlackBerry rested on his dashboard. He seemed almost too sophisticated for a town like this. He had the most disillusioned look I'd ever seen on a man's face. "Then do yourself a favor. Turn around and head back to wherever it is you come from." That's good advice. Could it be I had finally found a decent human being in this town? I wish I knew where to go, but I haven't got a clue of how I got here. Amnesia? What? Do you have amnesia? No. Then it occurred to me that I might have some form of amnesia. Was that why the last 24 hours were a complete blank in my mind? What if I hadn't been passed out in that room the whole time and I'd actually been up and about yesterday? What had I done? How could I reconstruct the lost time and retrace my steps? It opened up a whole slew of possibilities. It was a can of worms that I hadn't considered in the equation. At least I don't think so. "Are you by foot?" "Yeah." "Don't take this the wrong way, but you look a little lost." "Yeah, tell me about it. It's a long story. But if I had amnesia, I'd know, right?" "Well, I'm not an expert on the subject, but I think you would. Do you know your name, how old you are, where you come from, what you do for a living?" I nodded. "Yes, I know all that. I just don't know how I got into this town and what happened to me during the course of the last 24 hours. And I think I may have been drugged." "That's not good." He glanced at the wheel, then at the wheel and at the town one more time. "Well, I just drove out of this stand of a town, made a U-turn, and was taking a long last look at this place. I'm all done now and ready to go. I'm going in the other direction, though, through the main street where you came from. But if you'd like to get out of here, hop in and I'll give you a ride." That was the best thing I'd heard all day. If it's no trouble, I'd really appreciate it. He pushed the passenger door open and I climbed aboard. "I'm Jake, by the way," he said. I introduced myself and we shook hands. He turned his truck around and we headed back into the main street. "So, did you live here?" "No, I just came for a funeral. I grew up here, though. I left a long time ago. As soon as I got my driver's license, I got out of here." He said it as if it brought up a sour taste in his mouth. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thanks. We weren't that close." I didn't want to pry, so I changed the subject. "Where are you heading?" "Don't know yet," he smiled. "I anywhere at the moment." "How come?" I took some time off work to come here, not just for the funeral. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I should have known better. What about you? What are you from?" I told him. He whistled. "You're a long way from home. And you say you don't know how you got here and you think someone drugged you? Do you want to stop by the police station and file a report if you haven't already done so?" "Nah, I'd rather just forget about this place. It's all the same to you." "No problem. I just have to stop at the gas station to fill up and we'll be miles away from Springfield in no time." We pulled up to the only gas station in town and Jake stepped out to fill the tank. It looked like a gas station from the 80s, untouched by the passing of time. There were 3 rundown cars from the late 70s or early 80s in the lot. The windows of the little corner store attached to the gas station were ornamented with faded posters of products no longer found anywhere for at least a decade. It was there that my eyes swept across a missing person picture printed on yellow paper size 8.5 by 11. I couldn't believe it. My eyes were playing tricks on me, I was sure of it. I had to get out of the truck to get a closer look. I walked up to the store window and stared at the poster. The writing was faded, but the picture was still clear enough for me to see. I put a hand on the window. You want to grab something for the road? Jake said as he shut the lid of the gas tank. I was too dumbfounded to answer. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. He walked up behind me. The girl on this picture, it can't be right. A shadow cast itself upon his face. Why? You know her? He said. You could almost say she might very well be the reason I'm in this town. What? It's a hell of a long story. Her name's different, but if she's who I think she is, then I was about to have dinner with her 3 days ago. What? He yelled it this time, cutting me off. You need to explain yourself because this isn't funny. Her name's Sally Slade, and until 3 days ago, when I had last seen her 25 years before, she looked exactly like this. Jake appeared deeply troubled. Well, I and the rest of Springfield knew her as Jamie Andrews, and she went missing about 25 years ago. I was going out with her at the time she disappeared. I was actually one of the suspects. I was 15 at the time. Wow. Like I said, she was alive and well 3 days ago. He cut me off again. No, there's no way you could have been with her. I'm telling you, I was. Different name, but the same girl, I'm positive. He shook his head. The reason you couldn't is because she was found dead in a ditch a year to the day after she went missing. End of chapter 6. That's it. That's chapters 5 and 6 of Oblique, and I am right on time. There's 4 minutes left to this book launch. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have questions and that you're curious about seeing what comes next, and that you'll be like, whoa, I gotta know what happens. I'll buy the book. So if you want to buy the book in 5 or 6 minutes when this is over, I will go on my Facebook page and you can send me a message and we'll set you up by PayPal. If you're in Canada, Interactive Transfer, whatever you want, PDF or Kindle, EPUB. And yeah, thank you for joining me tonight. I don't know how many of you are there. Sarah's here. She's the only one commenting. So if there's anybody else in the room, just type a comment, ask a question. Yes, I will quickly go over some of the novellas that will be reprinted digitally over the course of the month of October. So every week, every Thursday, the way I've been doing for the short stories, there's one more short story to go this Thursday. The very last one, it will be short story number 8. It will be A Madman's Atonement, which was the short story that I started working on that short story back in the year 2000. It's the short story that I first wrote where I coined the word BITTERNEST, the fictitious city in Louisiana where all of my supernatural stories take place. I coined the word BITTERNEST in that story. At the time, it was meant to be a novel, and I dropped it. Went back to it many years later, and decided, this would be more suitable to be a short story. So worked on it, became A Madman's Atonement. BITTERNEST became a crime/vampire novel, which was published in 2007. So A Madman's Atonement is a very special story to me. It's about 30 pages long. It's the longest of all the short stories that I've been re-releasing. So you'll be able to get that in 2 days' time for free. And starting the Thursday after that, I will be re-releasing at $1 each all the novellas that were published in the BITTERNEST Chronicles and Spooky Showcase. So the first week will be Cellar Door. The second week will be The Dark Emissaries. For those of you who have read my short story, The Chilling Hour, you're already familiar with the Dark Emissaries, very mysterious beings. So this is a novella where you get to know more about them. It has also some recurring characters from my previous stories. The third week will be Vengeance is Mine, my Jack the Ripper novella. It's basically a retelling of the Whitechapel murders of the 1800s. Historically accurate. I put my own spin on it, but it's very did a lot of research for that one. The times of the murders, the street corners, everything is accurate, dead on. It's you could pretty much, if you want to have a conversation with someone who knows about the Jack the Ripper murders, you could keep up in the conversation by reading that story. And last but not least, it will be The Paradigm. my Jim Coffin story. Jim Coffin is is the favorite character I've created. He's a private eye. His stories, he's also in my third novel, Nocturnal Offerings. His stories are basically mystery stories with a touch of supernatural. He has his own novella, The Paradigm. It's about 130 pages long. It was first published in Spooky Showcase in 2012. The story takes place in 1984. I had planned to write a bunch of books with him, going back to one of his first cases in 1974, and there would be one book a year for 74, 75, 76, until 1984, because something very important happens to him in 1984, and I wanted to go back and explore everything that happened to him until that point. So yeah, this will be the first. This novella will be reprinted, The Paradigm, because it will be leading to my next project. I miss writing BITTERNEST. I haven't written anything in BITTERNEST, and I'm done writing horror, but I'm not done with BITTERNEST yet. So I will have one more novella with Jim Coffin. It will be called Once Upon a Time in BITTERNEST, and it will be one of Jim Coffin's first cases. I will start writing it in December. I have the cover ready for you. It will be a brand new novella that will be published late spring, early summer 2019. It will be available everywhere, Kobo, Amazon, and I will reveal the cover art for you tonight. I will put it after this broadcast. I will put it up on the event page, and tomorrow I will release it everywhere. So that's what's coming. Lots of stuff for you. 4 novellas. Of course, my Halloween Crimson Nightmares novella, which is the Michael Myers Halloween, my homage to the Michael Myers Halloween movies. It's a story that takes place 33 years after the original film. It takes place in BITTERNEST, so it's Michael Myers that comes to BITTERNEST. That's a free novella, of course. It's considered fan fiction because I don't have the rights to Halloween. Every year I repost about it. You can probably find it if you scroll down on my blog or on my Facebook page. But I will re-release it again this year to coincide with sometime in October, to coincide with the release of Halloween 2018, the new movie, which I'm eagerly anticipating. So I think that covers everything. I'm not sure if there's anyone here apart from Sarah. Thank you for being a trooper and sticking it out. I don't know if it's because you guys couldn't find the feed or if you're just being quiet. I have no idea. Or yeah. So if you're watching this, you're probably going to be watching this as a quote unquote rerun. After it will stay on my YouTube account for posterity forever. So you'll be able to catch it again. And as I said, for next hour, you can get Oblique at $1 off. So $4, $3 US, $4 Canadian. Message me, and thanks for celebrating the release of Oblique with me. I hope you had fun. I hope you found it was an engaging read. So yeah, good night. I will see you all soon.